Tell us about you and what you do with To Be Magnetic.
To Be Magnetic is a manifestation brand. People hear manifestation, they think shiny carrot, all the nice things that they really want in life. But really, at the heart of what To Be Magnetic is tools for transformation. There were a lot of moments where I was like, am I an idiot? I went to school for this career and I'm like blowing it all up. The old company I used to work for in New York, the owner of that company had reached out, do you want to do this thing? And I was like, no matter how shiny the test is, like I'm saying no. I have this philosophy that if you truly deeply want it, it is possible and destined for you. It's just getting all of the shit out of the way. I went to a Tony Robbins conference with my mom.
The one where they walk
Over the coals. Yep. It was really profound and it was more effective to me than years of talk therapy. I'm probably not supposed to say this, but
Jessica, thank you so much for being on Style Your Vibe. You are someone who I have been listening to for a million years
mm,
on the podcast that you co-host, Expanded.
mm.
Um, and you're actually the first guest I've ever had on who I've never met before.
Wow.
Mhm. Everyone else is like friends and family. There was one person, Gabrielle Reese, who I did not know her. I don't know if you know her. She does
Hmm.
the Gabby Reese podcast. And I was nervous. So I had not met her either, but I felt like I had more of a of a connection because we're both in the business and stuff. So I really geeked out over her. I'm gonna geek out over you because I have not met you. And so why don't we start off by you telling us about what you do at To Be Magnetic, because that is how I met you. And
Yeah.
this is actually also my first interview where I'm probably gonna be call it like the experts. You know, how you've like process episodes.
Hmm.
And up until now I've interviewed people from my business, and as I explained to you, asked them how they got in it, how they stay
Hmm.
in it, how they deal with all the craziness. And so you are sort of a two-pronged approach where I would love to talk to you about how you got into doing what you're doing, because it's not far from a glamour job that my usual guests would be trying to get into, like
Hmm.
modeling or whatever. I would consider it very glamorous, and it's a coveted position. So I want to talk to you about that. I want to talk a little bit about your background, how you were like, and then and we'll talk about To Be Magnetic. So, and what it is, and that's a modality that you practice. It's something that I practice, and hopefully we can share with my guests, how they can get into it, what they
Yes.
can get out of it, and it's kind of like a process, I guess, episode
Yeah.
as you would call it. So, um, tell us about you and what you do with To Be Magnetic.
Okay, so I am the chief content officer at To Be Magnetic, and I host their podcast, Expanded. We have over 40 million downloads, I think, at this point. The podcast has been running about 6 years. So it's still a relatively newer podcast, but it
Uh-huh.
just has grown and grown and grown and grown so much over the years. And when I first started at To Be Magnetic about 6 years ago, I think they were a year into launching the podcast at that point. They came in, my background's in film and television production. I was running casting departments and producing shows and writing and writers' rooms and kind of doing everything in that world, and was really feeling that call towards something deeper, more meaningful. Like I was getting so into spirituality and also therapeutic modalities. And I stumbled upon To Be Magnetic. I genuinely don't even know how or what it was that made me follow the brand. But I wound up following the brand. I was like, okay, yeah, that's interesting. And what actually got me to listen to the podcast was there was an episode with Donna James, who's a nutritionist and health coach. And I was going down trying to learn about Margot Robbie's health rituals. And Donna
It's
James
always the
was
clickbait.
mentioned.
It's always
I
the clickbait.
Yeah. And I was like,
Margot
okay,
Robbie's
like
secrets to like youthful blah blah blah.
I was like, "What does Margot Robbie use here?" I'd be so curious. And so Donna James is mentioned as having worked with her, and I was like, "Okay, what does she have to say about health and fitness?" And it was one of Expanded Podcast's second episodes, and I listened to it, and I heard a little bit
Wow.
about Lacey sharing about To Be Magnetic, who's the founder of the brand. And I was like, "What is this stuff? This is fascinating." And I started getting into it, and I think I bought, like, their inner child workshop and started doing the work, and I was hooked. I was like, "This is the bridge. This is the
Mhm.
bridge between all of the self-help work I was doing." It also gave a platform for spirituality without preaching anything in spirituality. Um, and it just felt so new and fresh and different than anything I'd seen before, and I was like, "I gotta figure out a way to work with these guys." Like, there is something so interesting here, and with my background in film and TV, I had produced podcasts for people before I had launched my own podcast. I was like, "The audio quality here is not so great. Like, I wonder if I could I wonder
Right.
if I could make that better for them. Like, I wonder if I could take all my skill sets from this world and bring it into that world."
Mhm.
And, I had reached out actually probably even 6 months before they were even hiring. I was like, "What do you guys need help with? Like, this is my background. I can help you." And they're like, "Oh, we're not hiring right now," et cetera, et cetera. And then I was like, "Okay." And I was doing the to be magnetic work to manifest whatever my next job would be outside of film and TV that felt more aligned. And even though I deeply wanted to work for To Be Magnetic, I knew I was like, "Okay, it's To Be Magnetic or a company like To Be Magnetic.
Mhm.
Like, let's keep it open a little bit." And ultimately, they wound up hiring for a podcast producer role, and I was like, "Done and done. Let me get in there, start there." And very quickly jumping in, I was like, "Can we develop a new workshop? Can we do this? Can we do this?" Like, I immediately hit the ground running. And so now I create all of their workshops, all of their deep imaginings, really at the forefront of like learning what the community needs and then being the synthesizer behind the scenes with Lacey, with our psychology advisor, with our neuroscience advisor. And we're like, okay, how do we sequence this into a step by step process to really help
Mhm.
people? I say in transformation portals.
Mhm.
So that's
Well,
how it
okay,
came to
so
be.
that's a lot, and it's great that we know what you do there. We're gonna talk about how you got there, more
Yeah.
expanded journey, which I
Yeah.
know a little bit about. But before we go any further, since my listeners are probably not familiar with TV Magnetic, or they may be, but can you tell us what exactly TV Magnetic is for people who don't know? Like just
Yes.
the synthesized version. We're gonna get more into it, but just so they know in the context
Overview.
of what we're talking about, because we're gonna be talking in like TBM lingo,
Yes.
for the most
So
part, which I now use. So
yeah,
yeah.
To Be Magnetic is a manifestation brand. We have online workshops, tools, modalities, but it's almost like the concept of sugar with medicine. People hear manifestation, they think shiny carrot, all the nice things that they really want in life. But really, at the heart of what To Be Magnetic is tools for transformation. They're tools that are based in psychology, based in neuroscience that help you rewire the limiting beliefs in your brain, to transform them through your actions, to see people, what we call them as expanders, people who show you what you want is possible for you too, and to really create the life that they want.
Mhm.
I have this philosophy that if you truly deeply want it, it is possible and destined for you. It's just getting all of the shit, the programming, the fears, the limiting beliefs out of the way to get you in
Uh-huh.
contact with it again.
Uh-huh.
And we've seen tens and tens of thousands of people transform their life with this work. Like, if you ever doubt that it's possible for you, you should hear some
Oh,
of
you
the
just have to
stories.
listen to the podcast and you'll get hooked, and then hopefully I think, a large part of what I talk about is actually practicing, because I think people
Yeah.
think, and that's why I use practical examples of people basically using manifestation to get where they want, even though they may not practice a manifestation tool. There's lots of other
Mhm.
things that people develop in different modalities to keep them together. But I think usually people who get into these really difficult, professions with like no roadmap usually have something inside of them. So, which
Yes.
brings me
Yes.
to, we're going to talk about, to be magnetic and how people can use that as a tool in their life. But let's start with you.
Mm.
and your own journey to, jump off the cliff and leave what you were doing before. So just tell us briefly, like, sort of where you're from, and then just kind of, I know where you're from, but take us through like
Yeah.
how you got to there, what you thought, and then your kind of arc to getting there, because it was a pivot for you,
Mhm.
and it would include a lot of things that To Be Magnetic talks about, which I ha I'm a practicer, which is why I'm gonna use some terms and then sort of explain them, but you basically jumped off a cliff.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you did unblocking, like, you said you were doing something when you manifested this job, but you
Yeah.
could maybe, like, walk us through it. You
The
were probably
steps.
sort of dabbling, and usually it sort of takes a while, and a lot of people have to sort of unblock more things, but, so tell us about, sort of where you
Yes,
came
the
from, how you
journey.
got there, and then how you got here, like.
So I am from New Jersey. I'm from the East Coast originally. I went to school at Penn State for film and television production. I was always obsessed with film and TV. Like that was my safe haven. Even when I was a kid, I remember the Friday night shows, like TGIF shows on ABC. Like there was just so many cherished moments growing up that revolved around film and television. And then even as I got older, I would see these, like, incredible films. I remember we had, like, a HBO Access or something. That's when you had to, like, had the blurry cable TV and all of that, and I remember watching these movies on HBO just being blown away at, like, the storytelling and how moving it was, and my goal really was, I wanna create something like that. Like, I feel so much, and I feel like a different person. I feel like I think about life and the world differently after watching movies like that. I wanna make that impact on people, like, that is the coolest thing in the world, and so I went to film school to do that and started in the industry, and everyone under the sun was like, "You have to go the agency route. You have to become an assistant and work your way up, like, that's the best way in," and I don't know if I just am defiant in that way, but I was like, "I'll find a different way in." And I started
I love that.
as an executive assistant to a smaller production company in New York, and
Hmm.
really did the same thing at that company that I did with TBM, whereas I started on a lower tier and busted my butt, became the most best person at my role, and that got me promoted, 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 and also because it was a smaller company, I had the ability to do more things there. There wasn't the bureaucracy of an agency where it was very hierarchical in those systems.
Mhm.
So I was able to do a lot, and I had some great mentors that were teaching me, like, my skill set was just getting refined and refined and refined. And then eventually I want to go freelance and start taking different gigs, and anyone who's familiar with the film and TV world, it's really a freelance industry. You're hired for a show, for a set, for a time, and when that wraps, that's it. And you
That's
wait for the next
exactly
phone call.
it's exactly, what everybody in my business and who I talk to is. We're
Mhm.
all freelance, and so that unsteadiness and no roadmap, not to interrupt, but that is why you're so interesting, because you have experienced this kind of life and this kind of, like, insecurity and instability and
I
no roadmap, and there's different ways to, we're not going to, like, medical school and there's
just
just a path, or being a
Mhm.
banker or anything. So it's interesting, that, you've why I think your case is so interesting too, is that you do have that background. So continue. So you said, you get
Yeah.
hired, and it was very kind of.
Yeah, it for me, I had the most success really just networking with the people who I were on prior shows with. So whoever the EP was of that show, I made sure that we became best buds. And if I really valued his taste and style and what he did or she did, I was like, "Great, let me know next project you have, hook me in on that." And that was really successful because I was able to get callbacks relatively quickly for different types of shows, but it also pigeonholed me in a certain pocket of the industry that wasn't necessarily getting callbacks for, like, my dream moving HBO movie or show
Mhm,
or things like that. And
mhm.
so, we talk about this a lot in To Be Magnetic, but there are jobs that pay your bills and there's jobs that fulfill you, and you have to kind of know when is the time to move between those 2 categories. So I was mid-20s, I was like, "Okay, you know what? This isn't fulfilling me. I'm gonna just stop settling for just every time someone calls me back for a job that I know I'm not passionate about the show, I'm not gonna say yes just because I can." And this is
Mhm.
a scary thing to do, right? Like, I had a little bit of savings saved up, and I was like, "Okay, if I don't get hired for the next 6 to 8 months, am I gonna be okay financially? Yes, okay, this is saved up. I have to really flex what we call our trust muscle and say no, communicate to the universe." And that's what I was learning at the time through TBM. I'm not gonna settle for this anymore. I don't wanna go down this route anymore. This doesn't fulfill me. I don't feel inspired. I feel bored. I feel like I've done this job a million times. I want something new. I want something
Mhm.
different, and I want something that feels authentic to my soul,
Mhm.
that's, like, stirring me. I
Mhm.
can't be so bored at my job in 25. Like, come on,
Mhm.
what are we doing here, life?
Mhm.
Um and so I took this, almost like a gap year of, okay, I'm not going to settle for these jobs. I got the callbacks. They were like, "Oh, come write for this game show or come do this." And I was like, "Ooh, my bank account's dwindling. Like, should I just say yes?" And I was like, "No, no, no, Jess, we can make the pivot."
Wow.
And so it was really important for me during this time to find a lot of what we call expanders, people that were showing me that it was possible to move and use my skill sets that I had from film and TV into a wellness space, into a space where people were talking about their mental health and their well being and all of these things. And so I had a few friends who were set photographers that had moved into the industry. So I was like, okay, I'm starting to kind of see the gap or the bridge between the two. And then I met a lot of expanders who were television producers that went into producing podcasts. And I was like,
Mm.
that's interesting. I never thought about that. They're like, it's editing, eventually it'll be video, there's clips, like it's the same thing. There's a story arc, there's a beginning, middle, and end. You have the
Mm.
show credits, you have the pre roll. It's all the same stuff as TV. I was like, okay, yeah, I could do that. I could do
Ah.
that. And so I started my own podcast just as an experimentation of like, let's see how hard this is given what I know how to do already. And I started that and had that going. And it was a ton of work because I did everything for it. I mean, as you know, like when you're launching a podcast, it is
Yeah.
so much,
Yeah.
so much.
And you sounded great, but it was but I loved it. Yeah, anyways, people can go check it out. But you've come a long way, but I would say you had, like, the star quality anyways. So, you were doing your
Oh,
own podcast.
yeah, doing my own podcast and the brand of Too Magnetic, I really had my eye on because I just felt like, wow, if I could I was also getting so many ideas for that company specifically. I was
Mhm.
like, well, if this workshop, we sequence it this way and this could happen. And I was like, why
Mm.
do like, why do I care so much about this? What is going on? But it just
Mhm.
kept coming up again and again. And I was like, all right, I'm going to surrender. I'm really going to trust. And it was funny. The old company I used to work for in New York, where I like moved up very quickly, the owner of that company had reached out during this time and was like, "Hey, like I have some like odd jobs, so we're opening up an LA office. Do you want to do this thing?" And I was like, "This is the biggest shiny carrot test. Like, will I go back to this old life, this old way of making money? Am I gonna settle?" And it was like maybe a month before the TBM job opened up. And I, like, weighed it back and forth. I was like, "Well, if I take it, it could be short term and I could save money." And I was finally like, "No, I'm gonna have to say no. I'm gonna have to pass." And I said
Okay,
no. It was
sorry, I have
yes, yes,
but
go for
you
it.
were living in New York, and this job was
I
gonna
moved
be
to
in
LA at this point.
oh,
Yeah,
you'd already moved to oh,
yeah.
phew, okay. So, tell me a little bit about that because that already right there is you were having a draw to live in LA. You're from the East
Yeah,
Coast, you're working in
yeah.
New York, you're at you're getting your foot in the door. Obviously, there's a huge film and television industry, in LA, but is that why you moved to LA? What called you to LA?
Honestly, I'd always really wanted to live in California. I just felt like very drawn to the state and like the climate. And I'm a summer person. I love the sun. I love the sunsets, all the things. But it was really a next career move because in New York, while there is a ton of work in film and television, a lot of the initial deals got made in LA. It's
Mhm,
like
mhm.
the production company, a lot of them are based in LA. There are
Yeah,
some in New York, but a lot of are based in LA, and then maybe
yeah.
they'll shoot in New York.
Right.
But I found that if I went freelance, I could work for a wider variety of companies, see more people there, network there, a lot of the talents out here.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
I was doing a lot of shows in like the comedy space. So
uh-huh.
obviously going to stand up shows in New York was going to be better, but there's still a good stand up scene in LA as
Yeah.
well. So that next chapter of film and TV is what brought me to LA.
Okay. So you're living in LA and
Yeah.
did you discover to be magnetic when you lived in LA or was it before you
No,
moved?
when I had been living in LA, I think looking back now, I went to a Tony Robbins conference with my mom, which
Love.
was quite an
Oh,
experience.
you went to the whole, like, the one where they walk over the fire
Over
and
the coals, yep. Mhm.
amazing. Okay.
It was really profound, and it was I call it, like, shaking the snow globe. My perception of myself and what I was capable of just expanded tenfold after that
Uh-huh.
event, and I
Uh-huh.
remember coming back, we were in the middle of, like, a writer's room for a game show, and I remember coming back to the room, and I was like, "What are your guys' passions? Like, what are you excited by? What are your goals?" And they were like, "I don't know, like, maybe a summer vacation." I was like, "No, no, no, like, big goals. Like, what do you guys wanna do with life?" And they were kinda like, like, no one around me had this just big dreamer concept around them, and I
Mhm.
was like and not to say that people in television and film aren't like that, there are a ton of dreamers in that industry, but it just
Mhm.
happened to be the rooms that I found myself in, and
Mhm.
I was like, "I gotta get out of here." Like,
Wow.
there's something so much bigger for me out there, I'm not sure what it is, but I know it's not here, and I
Mhm.
need to make the jump. And
Mhm.
then I found To Be Magnetic, so that
Mhm.
was kind of like my roadmap of
Mhm.
how to move from that industry into a different
Right.
one.
In TBM, we call it's TBM for short, to be magnetic.
Yeah.
Um, so you practiced a lot of the things that TBM talks about, like the shiny carrot would be the test, and
Mhm.
what a test is when you're asking for something
Mhm.
and things present themselves to you, but they're not quite what you want, like
Uh,
the guy calling you back and asking
mhm.
you for the job, and basically by refusing to accept what is subpar what you want on a
Mhm.
like a visceral level, you actually open the door to what
Mhm.
you really wanted. I don't think people really understand that concept, and certainly in these jobs that people just wanna do it, and a lot of times they'll accept just a little bit just to get it's one thing getting your foot in the door, but after you've
Mhm.
been doing it for a while and, um, a lot of people take jobs they don't really want, and sometimes you need the money, and that's called,
Mhm.
like, a bridge job. You
Bridge.
just do it for the
Mhm.
money, but when you have what you would call the "fuck you fund," which
Mhm.
is, months of savings, so how far were you into the practice? Like, were you in a workshop? Because
Uh-huh.
obviously the workshops take you through, what you want and whatever the focus of the workshop is, and then your goal is to, work towards that thing. But it's always the same kind of curriculum where
Mhm.
you unblock and do these different
Mhm.
things. So were you just like a natural at it? Or were you following the things? Did you know like that thing was a test and by refusing, how much of you getting over to TBM was using the TBM techniques versus what was very sort of natural for you or what you picked on kind of immediately?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was deep in TBM, so I knew I could identify the test because I had
Mm.
listened to the podcast. I was in the middle of the How to Manifest workshop. Like,
Mm.
they had a Q&A class. I would watch every single episode. Like, I really wanted to commit to this practice because I had seen the first thing I ever did with them was the inner child workshop, and that
Mm.
just healed so much on so many layers for me, like, deeper. I'm probably not supposed to say this, but it was more effective to me than years of talk therapy had been to that point.
I know exactly
because
what
I
you
was
mean.
actually feeling through things, because I was moving through these stories, these narratives. I was recontextualizing like all these assumptions my child brain had made. And so once I had such a big healing with that piece of the work, I was like, okay, let me
Mhm.
just really try this manifestation stuff. Let me put the tools to work. Let me see if I can use it to manifest my next job in this career path shift. And
Wow.
I think when it comes to tests, people say, like, oh, what's the harm in just taking one more job in that industry? And that was definitely my thought. Like, okay, is it really gonna like be so bad if I like quote unquote settle and take this job. And at one point earlier on, I did and I said yes to it. And those were like the most mentally taxing and excruciating 4.5 months of filming and shooting that I had ever been in because I felt like I lost my soul. It felt like I
Mhm.
like there was nothing bad, nothing was wrong. It just wasn't right for me. And it wasn't
Uh-huh.
right for me anymore at that
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
And so it was just like every nod and wink from the universe to be like, Jess, like, we're done. We're done here.
Mhm.
We have to close this door and go
Uh-huh.
into the next chapter. And I think this can happen for people in career, this can happen in relationships, but it's just like when you have that moment where you're like, oh, like, this is done. Like, I
Mhm.
I can't I cannot entertain this anymore. It is literally
Mhm.
compromising my whole being from being
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
Um, and so after that, I was like, no matter how shiny the test is, like, I'm saying
Mhm.
no. Like, I know
Mhm.
it's a no. I have to run it through. And this
Mhm.
is my first time putting in place something with the to be magnetic work that felt really high stakes. Like, this is my career, this is my
It's
livelihood, this is my
hugely
income.
high. Yeah,
And
it's
this is my
major.
first time doing this practice. So there were a lot of moments where I was like, am I an idiot? And I'm just gonna like
Shouldn't I practice with a pair of jeans?
yeah, like, shouldn't I
Sometimes,
have
like,
tried something a little lower stakes
yeah, when
at
you
first?
listen,
Like, why on
yeah,
earth would I think this would be the first thing to practice with?
right.
I went to school for this career and I'm like blowing it all up.
Yeah.
So I definitely had those moments and those fears and those doubts in the beginning, but I just was like, you know what? It's an experiment. Let's see it through. Let's see it through. Put the work,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
keep passing the test, keep
Mhm.
unblocking, keep expanding, keep taking that aligned action. Follow
Uh-huh.
There's one aspect we call pings, and it's basically when your intuition whispers in your ear, like, do this thing. And I remember sitting down and be like, okay, what is one thing that I can do? I'm a very practical person. Like the second I decided to make this shift, I made a spreadsheet of every wellness brand, company,
Wow.
influencer that I knew in the industry. And I was like, okay, let's put all of them down. Like, are any of them hiring? Let's check their websites.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh.
what do they need help in? Do a quick audit of their business. What are they, how can
Uh-huh.
my skill set overlap with theirs? Like, I'm so logistics based.
Uh-huh.
And, the ping that kept coming through was like, "Start your own podcast." And I was like, "What? Like,
Yeah.
that's not helpful. Like,
Mhm.
how is me starting my own thing gonna get me a job for someone
Mhm.
else's podcast? That doesn't make any sense." But it kept coming and coming and coming.
Mhm.
And thank God I did because
Mhm.
having that on my resume, on my website was the thing that got me hired
Yeah.
at TDM.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, it's interesting talking to you because as I've said it, you really illuminate so much of why TB Magnetic is so great. And it also illuminates for people that there can be a process
Mhm.
to, I don't want to say get what you desire, but people have gut feelings all the time.
Mhm.
And I think people people try to question their gut feelings as we
Mhm.
all do. And I think that to be magnetic and the things that you have practiced show that we all we have a mind that sits in our cranium, and then we all
Mhm.
have a gut, and we all have our visceral
Mhm.
system. And there's somatic, you guys do a lot with somatic modalities and things, and that's like feeling something in your body. It could be a gut feeling. But I think what's so great about To Be Magnetic and what you did in taking the leap is that you practiced,
Mhm.
you kept you had you had mindfulness about it, and I think that's something I'm also trying to sort of pass on, that there's a lot of different modalities and a
Mhm.
lot of different things you can do. They can all work together, but people need to be given, like, permission or
Mm.
the validity, to validate,
Mhm.
"Hey, your gut feeling is something. That's
Mhm.
actually something. Your
Mhm.
body is telling you something." And, like, how do we listen? And I think that To Be Magnetic gives us the tools to, like, to name it. It's a ping. It's a real
Mm.
thing, and then what to do with the ping. And then you were, like, taking what you would call aligned action, which was making the spreadsheet and moving forward, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm just gonna, like, keep dreaming about it and it's gonna happen." And,
Mm.
one of the you can show that you were, taking the steps towards it,
Mhm.
and you took the right steps. And I think, you took the steps very laid out in the TV Magnetic, program. And, um, yeah, I just think you listened to your pings, you took the aligned action, you used your trust muscle, and these are all things that everybody can do. They're
Mhm.
not It's not magic. A lot of people, and I know that, Lacey says this, and you guys always say that it's a practical technique, and a lot of people think that manifestation is, like, super woo-woo, and
Mhm.
it can sound woo-woo until you break it down. And, Jessica is a perfect example of getting your heart's desire. And a lot of people who I talk to, they got their heart's desire, and it was passion and drive. And what are the tools and techniques to be able to unlock that and
Mm.
unlock the future that, you want? So at this point, I want to ask you also what you were like growing up, your
Mhm.
spiritual, because to be magnetic, it's practical, but you have to believe in a transcendence. It is spiritual work.
Mhm.
You have to believe that, um and something beyond, like, your current mind and your current body, things that happen in trauma when you are a kid and things that
Yeah.
influenced you. And you have to understand that a lot of times those are the things that will get into our brain and try to convince us
Mm.
of X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
But it does begin with believing that this can happen. I think that's why the podcast is so great, because every Friday it's another practical example of,
Mhm.
um, either what you can do. You guys are talking about different things like abundance, money, inner child. There's so many different aspects of the platform that you can dive into. But, so tell me about, so that's a way to, like, yes, listen to the podcast, get sort of convinced that, like, this might be able to work. There's how can I
Yeah.
doubt it? But tell me about your sort of spirituality growing up, or were you spiritual? Would you say that
Yeah.
you had inklings towards any of this kind of stuff?
It's so funny because I think at one point I would have said, "No, not really," but it wasn't until these past few years, especially doing so much inner child work, that I've gone back and looked at old photos of me as a kid and realized how much that I was obsessed with the concept of witches. Like, I loved Hocus Pocus, I loved,
Practical
Practical
magic.
Magic. Yes, of course, the
Everybody
best,
should watch Practical Magic if you
the
wanted.
best.
Yeah, uh-huh.
So good. I loved, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, I loved
Mm.
Charmed, like, I had memorabilia from them, I wrote my
Mhm.
own, like, pretend little spell book, and I kind of reflected on this recently. I was like, "What was I so interested in as a
Mhm.
kid and this concept of witches?" And I think I liked this idea that there was something out there that was bigger than us
Mhm.
that interacted with us, right? Which is like ultimate spirituality. Like, that's really what every religion kinda comes down to. Like,
Mhm.
there is
Yeah.
something bigger than us at play that makes you just believe in the magic of life. It lets you
Mhm.
see the beauty in life in a new angle, in a new way. And it was funny because my mom was raised Lutheran, and so we were raised Lutheran. But my dad was pretty much atheist and didn't believe it. He was like a science guy. He's like,
Uh-huh.
we live and then we go back in the dirt and like that's it. And like these are the stars and this is the galaxy. And we would have
Interesting.
these deep science conversations.
Mm.
But my mom was a lot more spiritual and her religious beliefs have evolved over time. But she always believed in a god or a source or whatever. And
Mhm.
I kind of fell more towards my dad's belief system for a
Mm.
long time. And
Fascinating.
throughout multiple things that had happened in my life, like being in, my late teens and getting into, like, a near-death car crash, and just these
Oh.
moments that, like, I look back at that felt so miracle-based, where I'm
Wow,
like,
okay.
"How on earth
Mm.
did I get out of that situation unscathed?"
Wow.
And I think when you have those moments that kind of get you close to it could either be a big fear or it could be like you're facing death and or a potential threat of death or something.
Mhm.
You really kind of just have this different connection to something else.
Mhm.
And I think I was 18 or 19. But yeah, there was a situation where the car spun out on the highway. It's like everything had to happen in the perfect timing that we were unharmed. No one in the car was
Wow.
harmed. And the car
Wow.
barely had a scratch. And we were able to like K-turn in the middle of a 6-lane highway and get out of there. And I
Mhm.
remember coming home and sobbing on the ground and then writing in my journal, love letters to, like, all my family members. I'm like, "In case I should ever anything should happen to me,
Mhm.
like, I want you to know how much I love you," and blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
But I think that something with that really shifted me where I was like, that felt like a miracle.
Mhm.
And I don't know how to explain other horrific things that happen in this world, but I do believe there is a benevolent force with us.
Mhm.
And so that practice of what that is or what that looks like or how I connect with that has just evolved over time.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I've definitely been I'm a very curious person. I was a very
Mhm.
curious kid. I wanted to
Mhm.
understand how everything worked.
Mhm.
And so I think that's translated over the years as
Mhm.
well and has led me to have that faith in something like To Be Magnetic where it's not saying believe in this God or this entity or this system or this anything. It's whatever you choose to believe, that's correct
Mhm.
for you, full
Mhm.
stop.
Mhm.
But there is something else at
Mhm.
play.
Mhm.
And moving with it and working with it and listening to those pings, like that's connecting to it all too.
Right. I think it's also interesting, to hear about people's childhoods and what they were into, whether they were actually spiritual or not. I mean, it's very interesting that you, talk about, like witches and witchcraft. I know that, um, that, again, there's like, uh, being witchy and doing like chants and stuff is like no different than like putting a crystal.
Yeah.
It's just putting your faith into
Which I have
something.
plenty of crystals
Oh,
now
me
as
too.
an
I mean,
adult.
they're all just always taking a moon bath ready to get the moon bath. But I think it's also interesting to bring up child what happens when we're children in terms of to be magnetic and also just making things happen in your life
Mm,
is that a lot of to be magnetic, probably the main part for a lot of people is the unblocking where you go down and talk to your childhood essence. And when we come out, I believe, and I'm sure you do too, when we come out, we're like perfect little authentic angel
mm.
angelic beings. And, it to be magnetic, you can tell I'm like a huge listener. I feel like I'm like a parakeet.
No, I
Um,
love it. Mm.
there it's what is it? I was gonna do the things you gotta the steps, unblocking,
Mhm,
expanding, whatever.
mhm.
But but when you go back and talk to the inner child who is really the key to your authenticity, it's interesting how going back so far,
Mhm.
you had were interested in those things as a child, and then you moved through things, and then you got back to, in a certain way, what was interesting to you as a child.
Yes.
And whether you are, like, aware of that unblocking or not, I think you have probably have a lot of natural tendencies to be able to, like, visualize and feel things and lead you toward that. I think it's also interesting that you liked film and television because that is so much about, um, the it sounds like you're talking about, like, the transcendence of
Mhm,
seeing a good movie, how it makes you feel inside. It might not be like, quiet on the set making the movie and the
mhm,
film and apertures and stuff. It's more like, how do I how do I get someone to feel something? And
mhm,
I think when we all feel things deeply, it is transcendence, which is spirituality, which is, you know, w and I learned the word liminal from you guys too. It's such a
ah,
great word, liminal. It's just between here and there, and I think that's the kinda mode that we all have to get into and trust
mm,
that in between that doesn't seem practical, like, where is this going? When you're like, "What
mhm,
am I doing? Like, this is crazy," you know? Um,
okay,
and I just think it's interesting that, just from your background and being a bit spiritual, and I think people fall into it in different ways, but it seems very natural to me seeing your
mhm,
trajectory and hearing about you, and, I'm so personally grateful that you're the mouthpiece, literally and
mhm,
figuratively of TB Magnetic. It's really, helped me. I won't go into it, now, but it's, you know between you and I, it's the reason why I'm doing this podcast. I'm
mm,
really jumping off a cliff, and
yay,
I'm scared to even say it. I don't know when this is gonna come out, but, I have, um yeah, I mean, I might cut this part out, like, later because I'm still scared, I'm still really scared that if people
mm,
I'm working and I'm still a stylist, and I've thought for a long time, like, how can I mix spirituality? And I thought in the beginning, like, I'll use the sparkle of fashion to shine the light on spirituality or try to demystify it, but I couldn't really figure it out. I mean, Gwyneth did whatever.
uh-huh,
Not really me, but it's because of TBM that I'm just like, I'm just gonna jump off the fucking cliff, and
yes,
it's so terrifying and really I love that TB Magnetic gives you the tools, like, when you're
mhm,
when you're terrified, which
mm,
we can either recoil and go back to that safety net and go back to that job and go back to that thing,
uh-huh,
or it gives you a tool like, I'm gonna go to the fear DI, and what the deep DIs are the deep
mhm,
imaginings. They
mhm,
are, hypnosis techniques that have, are influenced by EMDR. I mean, you could probably describe it better than me. I mean, at this
yeah,
point, maybe talk about like a DI, which I think is really the core of
so much of the work,
helping the
yeah,
techniques and the program. You do the DI and you work through the DI and you journal, and that really helps do what they call the unblocking because there's like what you want, there's what's stopping you,
yep,
and what's stopping you. It could be all kinds of practical things. And what TBM does really is like break those down. Get a fuck you fund and like helps you organize. So, talk to me a little bit about the deep imaginings and how that helps people unblock and move them closer to what they would like to attract.
yeah, so we kinda touched on, like, all 3 of the main pillars of the process, which is unblocking, expanding, and aligned action, and the reason we say they all really work in tandem is because the reason we don't have or are living out one aspect of something we want is because we have limiting beliefs in our subconscious, whether we're aware of them or not, that are basically telling our body, our nervous system, our mind, if we do that, it's gonna have a negative consequence. It's not safe, it's too risky,
Mhm,
don't do it, XYZ. There could be a million reasons. And
mhm,
usually it ties back directly to something that we picked up in childhood where we learned if we do something similar, don't put your hand on the stove, it gets burned. What is that version that your inner child picked up around whatever you were dreaming up?
mhm,
And when we think about those subconscious beliefs, they show up in our actions. It's how we self sabotage. It are
mhm,
those places that we do recoil, that we settle for those old things. And then the expansion piece is basically allowing the room in your brain to see, whoa, if they did that, I can do that. So,
Mhm.
all three of those pieces, unblocking, expanding, aligned action, it's all working in tandem with that belief system
Mhm.
in not only what's happening mentally in your brain, like connecting up neural pathways of belief systems. Like this action takes place and it fires this old loop that's like, oh, that's dangerous. And then
Right?
your body's like, wow, I'm sweating, I'm hot. This
Yeah.
must mean it's a
It
bad
it
sign.
it
Don't.
feels really real,
Mhm,
and I think the thing I was thinking of that I wanted to re-give back to you is that you say, to be magnetic says a lot, the pain, shame, and
mm,
programming, which
uh-huh,
is so heavy and really, really dictates what our mind thinks. So it
mhm,
literally feels like, "Oh my god, this is terrible." And we somehow think that's because that also can feel like a gut feeling, but it's
mhm,
really in here. It's really in
mhm,
the mind that's like, "Don't do that. You're gonna Jess, don't be blah blah blah. You're gonna,
mhm. Don't shine
Tracy,
too
don't
big. Don't
Tra-
do something
Tracy, don't
different.
Tracy, don't do a podcast because you know what? Whatever, it's my own personal it's my stuff that I've been working on, because when I was a
Mhm,
kid, it's like, you can't put yourself out there, you
uh,
can't show yourself, and I know we talk a lot in TBM about being seen and things like that, but
mhm.
it actually feels terrifying, and it's fear, so I
Yes.
didn't mean to interrupt, but, I
Yeah.
wanted to point that out, the pain, shame, and programming when you were speaking about, these things that we go into and that we need to reprogram through
100%. I
the
mean,
work
our
and the
our brains
DIs.
are incredible pattern recognition machines, right? And so if we've had an incident, especially in early childhood when our brain is developing, our brains are like sponges. It's like, how should I function through the world, especially 0 to 7 to 14? Like we're taking in everything and learning how
Mhm,
should we function in the world to survive. We're
uh-huh.
not thinking how should we function in the world to thrive. It's survival. That is what we're wired for. So if we see, oh wow, when I tried to try out for that school play, the kids made fun of me, and the assumption I took from that as a kid was, "Whoa, if you put yourself out there, if you let yourself be seen, especially if you're not perfect, you're gonna get shut down, you're gonna be kicked out from the group." Getting kicked out from the tribe meant death in
Yep.
so many systems, in tribal days, all of that. That's so wired in our nervous system. We
Mhm,
don't wanna be rejected. It doesn't
mhm,
feel good to be rejected. So
mhm,
of course, now as an adult, if you're trying to put yourself on a different stage, your whole body's like, whoa, 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 remember what happened. And
mhm,
so the deep imagining is what we were talking about. That's the unblocking piece. That's where we brought in a neuroscientist and a psychology expert to really work on okay, if someone is going to take through this belief system, this fear that they can't put themselves out there. But in order to achieve their goals, they're going to have to put themselves out there. So what we have people do is do a little bit of light somatic work, some breathing exercises to get your body feeling safe. We use deep theta waves to help people drop into really hypnotic state. We use some self-hypnosis stuff. Nothing like the old school hypnosis where you're going to like, lose ability of your body. It's
You're
just
not gonna,
very
like, go
relaxing.
drive the car and pick
No,
up Ben&
yeah,
and
don't drive the
Jerry's and
car while doing it, but you'll be perfectly safe, and you just kind of drop into a deep sense of relaxation, and it allows for your subconscious mind to come forward where you can actually access a little bit more of the memories and a
Uh-huh,
little bit more of the sensation and the feeling and kind of bring it up and recontextualize it.
mhm,
Like, okay, that made perfect sense why getting bullied after trying out for that school play or whatever it was, the talent show, was scary and painful. And you almost have a moment where you meet with your inner child and you're like, what happened? Like, how do you feel? And then you get this opportunity to kind of talk with that inner child part and say, okay, for you to not be afraid to put yourself out there again, what do you need from me? Do you need comfort? Do you need reassurance? Do you need me to tell you that this is just part of the process, that there's nothing wrong with failure, that it's okay to not be liked by people, that you will be safe and I will love you no matter what? Like, what do you need to hear in there so you know that when you go out and try it again, even if that same circumstance happens, you're okay. It doesn't mean, fire alarms and everything's a panic. And you get to actually process these things and basically reorient how your brain associates those kickoff points. So then when you go into the real world and you have the opportunity to go, on stage, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's hosting a podcast or sharing online or maybe even just speaking at your company retreat or whatever, your body may feel, "Oh god, here it comes again," but your mind can kind of do that reparenting work, be like, "No, no,
Mhm.
no, we've already been through this. It's
Mhm.
scary, but I can do
Mhm.
it." And then you
Mhm.
take one piece of aligned action towards
Mhm.
it, and you're
Mhm.
like, "Wow, I'm
Mhm.
okay. I
Mhm.
survived. Okay, let me take another one." And then slowly over time, your body stops reacting that way, and now it
Mhm.
feels natural and calm and
Mhm.
normal, and you've done it a million times. And so
Mhm.
it's this process of it's almost like titrating. They say this a lot in somatic experiencing, but it's like taking steps forward to then go backwards and forward, and then eventually it feels normal and it's synced up a new neural pathway in your
Mhm.
brain.
I think it's really interesting when you talked about, talk therapy, traditional talk
Mm.
therapy in relation to the TB magnetic work. I practice both,
Mhm.
and I've had the same experience as you, and, um, that I was very scared in the beginning of I didn't even wanna go into a DI, like,
Um,
anything with inner child, because literally I was scared. I'm like, I'm gonna start bawling uncontrollably, and I'll never be able to recover because
mm,
it was so painful.
mm,
What the things I remembered, like, in therapy, I'm like, "This was so painful. I don't know if I can go there, in this thing by myself, like, without
yeah.
a therapist there and stuff," but it is so safe, it's so calm, and you really do it is reparenting. It's like, and
Mhm,
you're the older, they always say like, "Oh, what would you," in therapy, like, "What would you say to your inner child," or whatever, and sometimes
mhm.
it's just difficult in that
Setting.
state
Yeah.
when your brain is working so much in therapy. It's talk therapy, it's cognitive therapy, which I
Mhm.
do, again, 100% believe in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I remember it flipped the switch for me, and I remember talking to my therapist, like, wow, it just I feel like it expedited things tenfold because
Yeah.
I was able to feel the feeling of what was going on, and
Mhm.
so that I could really get into those feelings and start working on that in therapy also, which is
Yes.
just so amazing.
I love that you point that out because I think all forms of therapy can be extremely helpful and effective. And if you have the ability and access to a therapist, I highly recommend it as someone who has been in therapy since most of our adult life.
Me too.
And I've tried different modalities over the years too,
Mhm.
But I think if you have only ever done talk therapy and you aren't seeing a shift
Mhm.
in that type of work, or you're not really seeing the changes that you want, or you're still stuck on that same pattern, then maybe adding in something like the 2B magnetic tools could be really helpful to like shake that up a bit. I definitely don't want to put therapy down at all. I love therapists. I love the practice, everything
Yeah.
about it, but I do think sometimes you need different tools at different times and different modalities too.
I totally agree. Um, what are some of the other modalities that you practice, Jessica, on
Mm,
your own? What are some I know, through listening to the podcast, a lot of things that you talk about on the podcast. So,
yeah.
can you walk us through some of those things and then other stuff that we may not know about Jessica Gill?
Yes. I feel like I've probably shared if I'm doing them and they're working, I'm figuring out a way to ethically incorporate them into the to be magnetic work. We
Mhm.
always talk to our advisors. I'm like, okay, how much of this tool could we share with people that they could do on their own that wouldn't traumatize them? And they're like, well, we
Mhm.
can't go full stop in this, but we can do this part of it. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, let's add it in.
Mhm.
So one thing that we've been incorporating in different ways is through the lens of internal family systems.
Mm.
So that is a modality that Richard Schwartz really has like paved the way in.
Uh-huh.
His incredible book, No Bad Parts, where
Mm.
he talks about it. But really, for me, parts therapy, internal family systems is recontextualizing all of your limiting beliefs and inner child parts and seeing them as almost like characters in a play and seeing it as like, okay, there's a part of me that believes that I will not be safe if I go on stage, right? Okay. And then seeing it through the lens of, all right, well, when that part takes the driver's seat, how does it react? What does it think? What are its fears?
Wow.
What is my am I sweating? Am I hot? Is my heart racing? Okay, what does it wanna say? And
Wow.
then almost doing the same reparenting work, but with those individual parts and
Mhm.
seeing them as parts of your whole and
Mm.
that they were born to help you, to
Wow.
protect you.
Wow.
They're not there just to traipse around this story. They're there to give you a warning sign. One thing that I was working on this summer internally through my own, therapeutic and TBM work was this feeling that I had to hustle, do it all, and I couldn't, I had a challenging time with rest and being
Uh,
more easeful. And I knew that like my abundant life, I was in ease. Not saying it wasn't,
mhm.
doing things and
Yeah.
accomplishing things, but in a more easeful way. And so I realized I had this really young protector part that thought that it came from childhood where I thought I had to take care of everything. If
Uh-huh.
I didn't see all the potentials, if I didn't handle everything, it would go to shit and I wouldn't be safe. And so as an adult, there's this very intense,
Hypervigilant is
yeah,
what we
hyper vigilant part.
hypervigilant is
Oh,
just
yeah.
like, wow, that's just fear. You and it's so great. At work, it could be so good. Like
So
I was
good.
so good.
Yes.
I'm so good at my job because I literally think of like the worst thing can happen. I think
Mm,
of the worst and plan for the best, but I'm
mhm.
so covered. I'm so buttoned up. I'm so it can
Y
really be positive in one's life.
Yes.
But it's interesting. So yeah, go on.
Well, it's in the balance, right? Like,
Mhm.
that hypervigilance part of me made me really good at my job, made me really good at all of my jobs,
Me too.
like, it had me on attention to detail times 1,000. Like,
Mhm.
it made sure no balls were dropped ever.
Mhm.
And at a certain point, you have to say, where can we switch out of this mode? And what is worth being in this mode for? I remember
Yeah.
even in TV and film when it would get so chaotic on set and so many things. There's one executive producer we used to work with, and I loved him for this. He would always say, well, we are not performing heart surgery today.
Oh my god,
We
we
are
see that on shoots all the time.
like, it's just like, break the tension, guys. We're making a movie. Like, let's bring down the stakes. Let's
Mhm.
bring down the the stimulation and just
Mhm.
remember, like,
Mhm.
everything's gonna be okay. We can
Mhm.
figure it out. And honestly, it's hard to problem solve when you're in that worried state all the time. You can actually have better solutions from that calmer space. So
Mhm.
that's one part that I'm taking through the TVM work and through the lens of internal family systems that I'm really giving that hypervigilance part a lot of pep talks.
It must be really hard because something that works in our lives, a lot of what we come up with mentally, obviously it helps us, in
Mhm,
our lives, but when we want to do something else, and it's so interesting because most people are trying to like, how do I hustle? How to be productive? Da da da. And it's like
mhm,
you're trying to chill out, which means that you're having to calm down this inner part of you that's thinks that things are gonna go wrong. So,
mhm.
fascinating. So what other things do you do, like let's sort of ease into like some more fun things, I guess.
Yeah.
Not like what are some wellness practices that you do
Mm.
personally?
I mean, honestly, this is like the most basic thing, but this has been transforming my life is I go for at least an hour long walk in nature outside. I try to do like at least 5 times a week.
Mhm.
And the prescription is like, listen to your gut. Do you want music? Do you want to listen to a meditation? Do you want to be magnetic deep imagining? Do you want to bring the dog? Do you not? Whatever it is, it's like total freedom. And I
Mhm.
also listen to my gut of like, what part of town do I want to go in? Do I
Mm.
want to be in a mountain? Do I want to be in this neighborhood? Do I want to be in
Mhm.
that neighborhood? Do I want to be, on a flat land? Like I just check in with my gut and I go there and I just explore for an
Mhm.
hour and I'm
Mhm.
telling you the the whole body, nervous system,
Mhm.
spiritual reset after that
Mhm.
walk is night and day.
Wow.
Like that it's so simple,
Wow.
but it's just a trust with self. It allows me to clear through anything that's come through. It also
Mhm.
opens up my creativity. Like if I've been
Mm.
stumped with solving a problem, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna, before my walk, I call it like planting the seed. Plant the seed of the problem. We know what it is. We're not gonna think about it, but if a solution comes, it comes. And then I walk, and at some point I'm like, wait, what if we try that? Okay, yeah, yeah, cool, cool,
Mhm.
cool. Keep walking, keep
Mhm.
walking. Oh, I
Mhm.
love this song. Oh my gosh, this makes me think, like it just opens up
Mhm.
so much within
Mhm.
me. And there's also so much of like seeing different areas. It feels like you're exploring, you're almost traveling. You get to see how the sun sets at different angles. It's the best. So highly recommend walks.
What about people who, say, "Oh my god, I don't have the time,"
Do 20 minutes.
right?
20,
I mean,
we
I'm a
have,
big I'm just I think what you do is great. I know that you're so much into nature, and I think that
yeah,
that is wonderful. I mean, I love California for that reason, but anyone can
yeah.
do it, and it really does it is true. It's like a meditation if you just let your mind people think that they can think their way out of problems, and
Mhm.
you have to just feel your way. You almost have to, like, let go. And again,
Mhm.
the TB magnetic helps you let go of the brain and tap into and,
Mm.
you know, get into what, is inside of you. And then what other things, like, do you, meditate or do you or how do you eat? What is your
Yeah.
diet like?
Diet, oh man. I mean, pretty clean. I try to eat like a lot of vegetables, protein, all the things. I am not restrictive. So I'm like, if I really want a chocolate croissant from the store, I'm gonna get it. There's a lot more ease. I used to be very, very rigid with food, and I've healed that on so many levels, and I'm so grateful for that, that, like, the idea of eating a meal is no longer stressful. It just
Mhm.
is enjoyable and
Mhm.
exciting.
Mhm.
But it's everything in balance.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's the big protein kick going on right now, but people are actually starting to talk about it. But one big hack, because I think so much starts in the gut, like our emotional system's in the gut. And if your gut's out of whack, then it's like everything else. Your serotonin's produced in the gut. So if you're feeling,
Mhm.
more in a lower mental state, like it may have started there. Um, More fiber, like good fiber in the diet. I've been switching off with, like, sun fiber. There's a brand called Preme, Preme, and it's just soluble fiber. It's like a little, a scoop you put in. I do it first thing in the morning, but that has helped my digestion majorly. Anything that's good for the gut, I'm like, "Let me try it.
Yeah.
Let me test it."
Yeah. I mean, it does make sense. It's like it's your gut feeling and then there's like it is a correlation.
Mhm.
Um, Jess, how are you doing for time? Because I wanna get through I just wanna touch on the TBM book. I wanna
Yeah.
ask you about your YouTube, and then I have some other like, we were gonna
I'm
go down
I'm good.
a little
Yeah,
bit
I'm
of a
totally fine
beauty
with time.
road because those are fun things that we talk
Yeah.
about. Okay. So let's continue kind of down where we were. So
Yeah.
you're into your gut health.
Yes.
And what do you think is the correlation between your gut health and your mental health?
Mm. I I used to think it was the body first and the emotions second, and now I think the emotions dictate the body, and then the body's responding to it, because so many times when I've had gut issues, yes, there are tons of, I can be eating cleaner, I could be adding my fiber, I can do all the things. But if I do not process the emotional side at all, it will just be a band-aid, because I need to hit the emotional aspect to really, and then maybe you do need, some people might need medication or whatever. Like then you do that, but you cannot ignore the emotional side, because it will always, I feel like
Mm,
it just has such an impact. I've seen
mhm,
it happen too many times with too many people that I'm
mm,
just like, I can't deny that this has such a direct correlation. I feel
mhm,
like it's starting to come back into the,
mhm,
conscious awareness of people, but I wasn't taught that growing up.
mhm,
That was something where it was like, if you're sick, you go to a doctor. What do
uh-huh,
you mean your emotions? That has nothing to do
uh-huh,
with this. This is medical,
uh-huh,
like, and I
uh-huh,
think now as an adult, just seeing and knowing my body, that's not how my body works. Like I
uh-huh,
notice if there is an internal issue, there is always an emotional connection
uh-huh,
in some way, shape, or form.
mhm. But I do believe though that when you're it's like the gut is like, the air filter for the car. So if
Mm,
you do try to keep it clean and
mhm,
balanced, maybe it can help with a little bit of porosity in the body. But I agree with you. I think the mind is like, it's more like it goes corrosive down that way.
mhm.
Um, now, how do you this is something personal, and I think that you've been asked this a lot, but what do you do for your skin? You have glowing skin. I I love watching you on your videos. I'm like and the different kinds of light, because like, you'll sit by the window, like, she looks good in any light, it's not just, like, direct light I've seen her in, like,
Oh,
and then, on photo shoots, it's so funny because a
yeah.
lot of actresses will be like, "Don't shoot me from the side, like, don't give me the side light," but, like
The lighting does make a massive difference, I will say, because it get like, certain lights that you're in, you have no texture, you have no
oh, yeah,
it's like a
yeah.
natural airbrush, but
Totally.
yeah,
But you do have great skin, it's
thank you.
categorically true, and this is my business, so it's not creepy, I can say it. But what do you do for
To
your skin?
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
You could
I
say
see a
it's
lot of the
natural,
things.
but if it's not, like, how do
Oh,
you help it along?
yeah, yeah. A
You do have
lot of the
great skin.
skin stuff starts in the gut for me. So
Really?
take a really good I take seed probiotic. I take the fiber supplement that I talked about. Armor colostrum I've been using a lot, like different teas, tonics. I make sure I'm hydrated. Like that for me is like step one. And then
Mhm.
if something's breaking out, I usually know it has to do with that. And I have to like go
Mm,
back to that. Obviously,
wow.
emotional stuff can help the skin break out. And then just like topically stuff, I use Bond Charge's red light mask. I love
Okay.
it.
Uh-huh.
I feel like I notice a difference on my skin. The elasticity gets better. The weeks that I'm more consistent, I feel like I notice more of an impact from it. And then I use pretty natural products. A lot of my skincare right now is Osea. They're like a
Mhm.
natural
Yeah, I know, I've heard you talk every time I go
yeah.
to, Erewhon. I mean, it's like I
Yeah.
live at Erewhon when I'm out there and, because rarely go to store, but I see the stuff that you say that you put on your body and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, should I get that?" Because like, you make it sound so good. But tell me about the body stuff and then I didn't know you use it on your face. I'm not sure because 'cause I've heard you talk
Yeah,
about, like, when you get
Osea's,
out of
they
the
have,
shower.
they just came out with it. I'm trying to think of what the name is. It's like I think it's like their sunshine cleanser or something, but both they have 2 different cleansers, the ocean cleanser. They're just a very clean cleanser, clear out
Mhm.
your pores, tighten your skin, whatever, and then they have a nighttime cream, their dream cream. I use that day and night, which I
Wow.
probably shouldn't, but I just love it, and then they have like a hyaluronic serum that I think just plumps the skin. I
Yeah,
especially use that
wow.
before podcasts because it gives a little plumper.
Oh, yeah.
And then the gua sha, I'll just
Oh, you
like,
do gua sha?
mhm,
Okay.
yeah, just like, move over everything and depuff the eyes and
And then
all
what
that good.
about, your do you normally wear makeup for the podcast? You also have, like, a really good, like, lip color
Oh,
that
yes, thank
is that
you.
natural or is it
No, this is,
do you wear
Press
something?
by Rhode.
Pressed by Road.
Yeah, it's like their lip liner. I have never gotten more compliments on a lip liner
I mean,
ever
it is so good.
than
I'm
this
like, "Is
color.
she wearing Pillow Talk? Is it Charlotte Tilbury?" I've, like,
Yeah.
literally been and again, this is, like, a business question, but everybody, yeah, I can call it business, but we all enjoy talking about makeup and stuff, so
Oh,
but
yeah.
when I get, like, forensic like that, like, it's not creepy, it's just, like, what we talk about. So,
No, I'm so down.
um
Yeah, it's Press by
oh,
Rhode, their lip liner. It's amazing.
but then what do
And
you
it's
put inside?
same color.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Just
I'm
line the
just like,
whole
okay,
fill the
did
whole
she
thing.
get I almost thought, like, did she get, like, that tattooing thing on her lips? But that would be so weird, she would never do
No,
that.
yeah, no, I haven't had any work done, no Botox, no nothing. I have good genetics.
Okay,
Honestly,
okay,
I see pictures of my grandma and even my
okay, good.
mom in her 60s, and I'm like, "I just got
Okay,
lucky." I
good.
don't have much to say there,
Alright.
but
Yeah, because 'cause I'm like, "You better buy that Osea, Trace." I mean, I do
I
have
know.
a red light mask, I do the Dr. Gross one, but and I and what about the PMF mat, the PEMF
Oh,
mat?
yeah.
I've
Oh,
heard you
I
talk
literally have it
about
laying in the floor
that.
in my office. I use it all the time. It's
Okay, and that
amazing.
just, like, regulates your nervous system and,
Yeah, so
a
they
lot
have
of
it set to
Mm,
different frequencies,
mhm,
and, the one I like setting it on is, like, Schumann's resonance with his which is the Earth's frequency, so it's,
mhm.
like, between 7 and 8, so I'll put it on there, depending on if I want heat or not, I'll put on the heat on it, but honestly, just I'll do my deep imaginings, I'll lay down on
Wow.
it makes me go so deep. You can put it on delta,
Mm,
frequency before you go to bed, but I'm obsessed. It is
mm.
just, like,
Okay.
if you're feeling frantic, it just
Yeah.
grounds you. In the morning, sometimes I'll just sit on there and journal, like,
Wow.
yeah. It's a
Yeah.
luxury, but it is
Yeah.
I'm obsessed.
I've been thinking, about that. And another thing, um, about TB Magnetic, which is so clutch and taught me so much, and again, helped with everything that I do, is the idea of regulating your nervous system and the fact
Mm,
that if your nervous system is not
mhm,
regulated,
mhm.
like, you can't you I mean, I'm probably not saying it in the right way, but you can't but, there's, like, not can and can't, but you're gonna make your best decisions when
Yes,
you're if you're dysregulated, like, nothing good can come of it. If you're having a problem, a crisis, an issue, the first thing you need to do is regulate your nervous system, which the DIs are so great for that.
100%. I mean, that's something we learned from our neuroscience advisor, Dr. Tara Swart. She was like, "Your critical thinking is offline. Like, you cannot access
Mm,
actual critical thinking if you are in fight or flight because your brain is
wow.
switched into a mode that's like, death is imminent. We need to get
Wow.
to survival. And so, if you're not in a life threatening situation, it's not helpful to have that switch on all the time. And so,
Wow.
we put in so many regulating techniques. We have a whole section in the app that's just the calming, deep imaginings that help people
Ugh,
really register
so
safety in the
good.
body, feeling into those somatic practices.
Mhm.
And honestly, when I first started learning about it, I would just do 5 to 10 minutes, those shorter deep imaginings once, twice a day just to know what
So
the
good,
baseline of regulation was. Because if
right?
you're especially if you're hypervigilant, that's not regulated, and so feeling what regulation actually is in the
Right?
body.
Because then you can
People
really
talk about
recognize it.
yeah,
People wouldn't know they're dysregulated because they don't that's such a good point. They don't know what feeling regulated is like.
mhm,
It's like
mm.
not having chocolate or, like, ice cream. If you never had it, you don't want it, but
Yeah, you
if
don't know
you
what you're missing out
missing.
on because 'cause you're like, "This is
Mhm,
just the state I'm usually in," and
mhm,
you're pumping
mhm.
cortisol all the time, and
Right.
that can also weigh stress onto the face too.
Mhm.
One big thing with honestly, just like beauty and facial things, emotional tie-ins. I know when I'm carrying anger that I haven't processed, when I have, like, the line in between my eyebrows, it gets, like, more intense, and then I know, like, I'm gonna have to do the conflict DI or process my anger in this or
Yeah,
do the journaling
wow.
exercise, like rage on a page, and I swear it makes a difference. Like,
Mhm.
I can see it, like, lighten and
Wow.
lessen and all of those things. Like, our emotions are I mean, if you think about it too, if you're
Yeah.
angry, you're like
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, so
holding those
true.
things in your face,
Yeah.
so, processing that makes a big difference
Yeah,
too.
okay. So, To Be Magnetic is coming out with a book, I hear.
Yes.
What? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this is the debut book for the brand. It's been a long time coming. People have requested us to do a book forever, and really it's walking through the foundational tools of how to manifest. The book's called How to Manifest. We're walking you through all of the steps that we talked about today, a lot of case studies of what people have gone through with it. I help create all the exercises in the book for it. Lacey and I are taking off turns reading the audiobook for it.
Oh,
So
wow, cool.
it's gonna be a full labor of love from the team, from the community.
Wow.
It's really a reflection of the last decade of this brand and just
Mhm.
wanting to get this modality, these tools into the hands of more people. If you don't have access to a membership, which we try to price very affordable so most people
It's so worth it.
access it. Yeah, but now the book will even be another way for people to, like, get their first foot in the door with the
Mhm.
brand, to learn about it, to share about it, to kind of go at their own pace through it. So,
Mhm.
we're so excited. It launches October 21st of
Wow, okay,
2025.
that's quick. And, oh,
I
are there
know.
pre-sales going on? Can
Yes,
people
yes.
pre-order?
Yeah, pre-order, I believe, is available now. By the time
Okay.
this airs, I'm sure it will be out.
Yeah.
And yeah, buy
Oh
it
my
in all major
gosh.
bookstores, online, Amazon, all the things.
And are you guys gonna do a book tour? I know that you've had the I almost came to one in New York, but it was like,
Yes.
I did, and I should've. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna meet them at some point." I don't know. I'll figure out I'll go to something in
Yes.
California. So you're gonna do a book tour and do all that
Yes,
stuff?
we are planning on doing a book tour. We are manifesting the
Mhm.
perfect event producers to help bring like a really special, unique way of doing it. We're all about authenticity. So even the way that we're doing the book launch, we want to
Mhm.
be very authentic. We're like, okay, we don't want to just do everything. What's the intentional things that we want to
Mhm.
do? Like, how do we make those moments count and how do we connect with our audience in such a big
Mhm.
way? So,
Mhm.
yeah, we're brainstorming all of that stuff now, and it'll be rolled out this fall.
That's really exciting. That is so exciting, the idea of bringing it to more and more people because it just really is life-changing. It makes you feel like you have the keys to your life in a very practical way,
Mhm,
really, and
mhm.
it's very cozy and community type, feeling when you listen to the podcast and when you're on the platform.
Mm,
So and let's talk about you might have a little project coming up of your
mm.
own, and you've
Yes.
talked about doing a YouTube
Mhm,
channel, on the podcast. I, of course, in my deep dive into you, know that you have done I don't know if you have YouTube before, but you did, have the podcast, so I'm sure broadcasting is not new to you, but do you have any fear like, tell me
yeah,
about
what's
that.
coming up with it, yeah.
Yeah, tell me what's happening, like, and just like I said, the podcast is me, sort of jumping off a cliff. Everybody has their own reasons for being scared of things, and
Mhm.
obviously, you're still going to be doing what you're doing. But tell us about that, because I've heard some when you talk about it, it's like, oh, hopefully, or da da. It sounds like
Yeah,
when you talk about Infusion Magnetic, the side hustle. Like, what are you
mhm.
going to do? And I don't know. So tell me about that.
This launch.
What are your goals for it? What are you going to do with it?
So, I've had the ping to launch a YouTube specifically for over a year, and I've been dragging my feet, um, in part because it feels kind of similar to the ping I had when I got that to start my own podcast, but my goal and kind of the reason for starting it is I just feel so much social media fatigue of the how do we optimize? How do we hack for the algorithm? Does it have a hook? Like, are we selling? What's the CTA? And so I'm like, I want almost like going back to my film roots, I want a purely creative channel. I want no optimization. I want no
Wow.
thoughts in the back of my head of like, how do I
Wow.
make it XYZ? Like,
Mm,
I think I've a little bit tricked myself that even my Instagram is like a creative channel. I'm like, but it's not because I'm thinking about, what you're supposed to do to have accounts grow. I want this to be like sacred from all of that. I want to
wow.
create in a way that feels organic and natural. I kind of akin it to, when authors are writing their book and they're just
Mhm,
sitting at their desk and making that book come to life. They're not thinking about, all the algorithm things going on.
mhm.
So it's kind of my rebellion against social media in some ways and will just be a purely creative channel. And the topics I kind of want to dive into a little bit lifestyle, a little bit of spirituality, business, innovation, like how I'm navigating things. I feel like I'm constantly in new cycles of transformation. And so I
Mhm.
think it gives me an opportunity to share a little bit more about like what I'm learning there and just share and
Yeah.
connect to audience in that way. Yeah, get to dust off my editing skills and like add a little
Yeah.
fun and flair there. But the intention is for it to be totally untouched by the algorithms.
Wow.
Um, and that's a bit scary because you can also do that and then no one watches it and you put all this time
Yeah.
and effort. But I've had this ping that it's gonna be a slow, steady burn, but
Mhm.
just keep with this, like, integrity of it,
Yeah.
and who knows what's gonna happen, but, like, my only role it's almost like I'm just the vessel through which this is coming
Mhm,
out, and I just
mhm,
need to get out of my way, get my ego out
mhm,
of the way, and
mhm,
do what's being asked
mhm,
and let it be whatever it's gonna be. And maybe it is only supposed to reach a small number of people, and that's perfectly fine, but it's gonna make an
mhm,
impact on those
mhm,
people. So I'm detaching, I'm in
mhm,
surrender with it, but I'm
mhm.
excited to see what comes out of it.
Well, it's also, like, I've had a lot of trust muscle built into me magnetic around, especially with the authenticity challenge,
Mhm.
just the most abundance happens when we are in our and the most magnetism happens when we're
Mhm.
in our most authentic state, and believe me,
Yeah.
I'm saying it like I believe it, but, having the trust muscle through what I've seen in TV Magnetic, it helps me, think that, and then you never know how the abundance will manifest. I mean,
Mhm.
whether it's followers, whether it's blah, whether it's da da, it could be one
Mhm.
person that is watching that you touch their
Mm.
life, or we don't, really know, but
Yeah.
it's the trust muscle again.
Yes.
So I'm gonna wrap it up with, first of all, letting people know that it's very fun to follow you,
Oh, thank you.
because you and this is why I think the YouTube channel is gonna be so great, if it's anything like your stories, because
Mhm.
your stories are so real. They're so like, you're going through the challenges when we are,
Mhm.
and I love your broadcast channel too, because you do,
Yeah.
like, little voice notes to people, and it really is, like, helpful. I think that's another reason why I wanna do the podcast also. It's so helpful to know that everybody is going through it, and people might look at Jessica Gill, and they're like, "Oh my god, she has the best skin, and she has the best job, and she's so lucky, and da da da." I'm like, "I'll never get that, and she's so
Mm.
perfect, and her diamond ring, and da da da." But it's like and just that's why I interview the people that I do too, supermodels and
Mhm.
photographers and whatever. It's like,
Mhm.
no matter who you are, everybody's going through stuff. So it really helps
Oh, yeah.
to to listen to that. So where can people find you on
Mhm.
Instagram, Jessica Gill?
Jessica Ashley Gill on Instagram. You can follow the brand at To Be Magnetic. Jessica Ashley Gill YouTube. You can subscribe now, and then you'll get notified when I drop episodes in there. And then the expanded podcasts every Friday,
Every
new episode,
Friday.
new teaching, sharing through there. But yeah, I really appreciate you saying that too, and it is so funny because I do not see myself like that at all. Like, I obviously value myself and love myself a lot, but I don't, see myself on that sort of pedestal of
Oh,
things. I'm like,
oh.
"Oh, this is just I love doing this, and I do this, and okay, great." Like, on to the next thing, and life happens, and I think it's also good if you find yourself looking at people in that way, and I definitely look at people that way,
Everybody
online.
does. Everybody does.
Just remembering exactly what you said, everyone's human and they all have their own shit, different shit, it might not look the same, but if you have that, like, "Wow, something about this person appeals to me or inspires me," that is a literal direct drop in from the universe saying that there is something about this person that you are supposed to step into for yourself. So it is not, oh, this person has this, I want it, I don't have it. It's no, no, no. The universe wouldn't even be putting that person that inspires you in your orbit unless you were supposed to witness them as an expander, that
Mhm.
it is possible your own version in your own way. So
Mhm.
use them as expansion, as leverage, as seen to believe that you
Mhm.
have that special
Mhm.
sauce in you too.
Mhm.
That reframing that has changed my life tenfold. So just know if you feel that, just lean into it and see it as your expansion.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 sides of that I've learned from To Be Magnetic. There's, like, also when you're jealous of people, like, "Oh, I don't like that person," like,
Mhm.
usually there's something in that that is in your shadow, which you'll
Mhm.
learn in To Be Magnetic, the shadow is the part that you stuff away, and that's, like,
Mhm.
not okay to be there. So, sometimes when you have, jealousy towards something, there is something about them that they have that you want, even
Mm.
though you're like, "Oh, I hate," there's something repellent about it, but that's usually what's in, your shadow. And the good side, the for positive expander is something like you were just talking about, and I wanna say that you've been an expander for me. You,
Aw.
you're so good at I mean, the fact that you produced your own podcast, and you started small and then you found your way, and you were also really nice to write back to me when I was asking you. I think I asked you, like, if you could be my producer or if you knew somebody, and then you told me
Oh,
about
yeah.
Riverside, and, you're extremely generous,
Mhm.
and you definitely have been, an expander for me, so I'm so
Mhm.
happy to see you blossoming. I'm
Mhm.
so I love following you. I think, definitely if you're listening and are interested in TB Magnetic, listen to the expanded podcast. It's great to, you know, get as much as you can, and I think that Jessica is always, talking in real time about the challenges that we're going through. What they do is
Mhm.
they have a challenge where it's like you're all start at the same day, and then, it's like a
Mhm.
6 month or 3 weeks or whatever. And the great thing is that you don't have to feel the time pressure, but there is something really nice about going through it at the same
Yeah.
time as other people. There's a community chat, but when Jess is going through it and talking about so many things, it just makes you feel like it's just so nice to have a partner to be able to practice, because we all need to practice. We all
Mhm.
need community. We all need cheerleaders,
Yeah.
and it's great to see that. And since you did talk about it, I will reinforce the fact that even the people who really look like, by all accounts, the money and the fame and the power, and it's like everybody's got stuff. And I think the
So
sooner
true.
people, realize it, number one, B, realize that they have you have the capacity in you to make change. And then with these different modalities and something like TB Magnetic, that's just so practical. There really is a way forward. So I urge everybody to give it a listen, give it a
So
follow.
good.
And thank you so much, Jessica, for being here.
Of
I was
course.
so excited. I'm so happy to meet you. I'm like dying. I hope one day we can meet you in person. It's like I've talked to Asha too, which I want to have her on as
Mhm.
well.
Yes. Oh, you
And so I
have
was like,
to.
okay, she has to tell you that I'm normal, and I hope to meet you one day in person. You're really
I
amazing. I'm so
mm,
happy that you joined To Be Magnetic, because obviously that the brand was manifesting a bigger audience, an
yeah.
audience, and you do need like a vessel to get there, I
Mhm.
just happy that you
Mm.
brought that to them. So
I also wanna reflect to you, like, it is so incredible that your interviewing skills and the way that you're holding space for this conversation is where it's at, and this is your first season of a podcast. Like, I was not like that my first season at all, so
oh, that's so
amazing kudos to
funny.
you
Oh,
and just,
thank
like, really
you.
see I don't know, I just feel like this is gonna be a big chapter for you, and you should just really take that in and get excited by it.
I mean, thank you. It's really, yeah, I feel like and I've talked to Asha before, and again, I'm gonna cut some things. I've talked to Asha before, like, that I feel like when this happens, like, it'll kill my career. You know what I mean? Because people
Mm,
in fashion are, like, very 24/7. There's a lot of, but, like, I'm sure like film and television, it's like if you're not in
yeah.
a 24/7 and people think that you have life, it's like, so anyways, I'm getting motivated.
Mm,
I'm gonna probably, who knows if I really jump off the cliff, and I feel like once this comes out, it will be jumping off the cliff. But thank you very much. I'm also
mm,
extremely curious person, and I did work at Women's Wear Daily where I had to be a reporter, and I faked
mm.
being a reporter and a writer so that I could be a stylist. And so I had to,
Wow.
like, um, interview people about, like, business stories, like, like, what was the for Father's Day or Mother's Day, like, what was the perfumes that were selling, and da da. And then I also had to go back then to, like, movie premieres and
Yeah.
ask celebrities, like, really ridiculous questions, and, like, ask them questions, and take it down and write about it later. So it's really
Wow.
funny. Yeah, but I love
Isn't that
talking to
so
people
full
too.
circle how, like, that skill set is now coming back and probably also your thousands of hours of working with clients. You have so many, stories and storytelling and know how to, like, move the conversation, but, like, it's just so wild to me that, like, no role goes
Yes.
unused and unmoved for the next chapters of life.
That is another thing. Yes, and we can end on that. Regret. People have so much when they look back at the past, like, oh, I regrets and regrets and regrets. And it's like everything has gotten you to where
Ugh.
you are now. It's so interesting. We've both talked about, something in our past that is now contributing to to what we're doing now, including, jobs that you didn't love and
Mm,
experiences that happen. And so it's so great to see it full circle. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for being so
yes,
generous with your time. I know that you're super busy. I
of
highly
course.
support you taking more rest, but I'm glad that you took some of it to chat to us. And I hope
Yes.
everyone enjoyed this interview as much as I did.
Thank you.
Bye, Jess. Thank you
Bye.
so much. Don't forget to leave your computer on or whatever, Riverside, I guess it's
Oh, yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
you'll do that anyways. So,
Yeah.
and on a personal note, if you ever need anything, fashionista for anything, I don't know, whatever. The
Oh
door's
my
out. You're
gosh.
in the friends and family now. I already thought that you were, after I spoke to Asha and stuff, and I always say had like a very familiar feeling about you, but nice to put a name with the face and hopefully for you too.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I'm so
Thank
excited
you.
for your podcast launch. I feel like this is
Thank
gonna be a huge,
you.
huge step for you.
I hope so. Hopefully, we'll be intertwined for a long time. Where it's based, we're both so into this self knowledge space, which I think is just so valuable to people. I think it's so nice to be able to demystify it and give people practical ways. So we're both doing that.
Yes.
Okay, Jess, thank you so much. I'm gonna end it
Thank
here.
you.
I thank you
Okay.
so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I really enjoyed this, and I was extremely nervous. I couldn't believe it. I was definitely more nervous than interviewing Cindy Crawford. So
Oh
I
my
didn't want to write
god.
that down because I was like,
I
great,
know. I'm like,
she's gonna think like, oh my god, she's gonna be terrible, blah blah. But like, yeah, it's just so weird. When you kind of and I love Cindy, and I look up to her in so many ways. Normally I get kind of starstruck around people who are like um I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyways, okay, great. Thank you so much, Des.
thank
See you
you.
soon. I'll hear you on next Friday. This Friday.
Okay, yeah. Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you.